This draft? What's there not to say? This is just the beginning for these guys. It's time to come home.
Tries to make a dribble and fumbles the football. It's picked up and walking into the end zone.
All these minor league players looking to make their impact? There's only one place to do that.
Oh my goodness!
Put up or shut up.
Oh boy!
The time to make your mark is now. Never before has the spotlight been brighter.
He always comes up big in big-time situations.
Can you stand the heat?
They did not catch him!
I made my mark.
With the 13th pick, the Chicago Wildcats select Mike Improta.
It's time to make yours.
Throwing it to the top of the screen. Looks like Mike Improta get the call.
This is the SFL draft. I'll see you on the field.
Hello and a very warm welcome to round 5 of the SFL Season 15 Rookie Draft. Tonight begins the supplementary round of the draft in which players not yet selected can make their chance to get into a pro contract. I'm SFL broadcaster Michael Turillo, and I'm happy to be joined tonight by a fearsome foursome of fantastic SFL analysts. First up, Benji Matson, a draft selectee this time by. Benji, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here for the first night of our supplemental draft.
Up next, the owner and player of the Houston Hyenas, Damon Simeon. Damon, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here.
Up next, the co-owner of the St. Louis Gladiators, Colin Northrup. Colin, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good tonight. I'm excited to see who gets the call up to the big show.
And last but certainly not least, the owner of the Vancouver Legion, Andy Hamilton. Andy, it's been a long week for some of us on this draft panel. How excited are you for it tonight?
Well, Michael, I'm more excited than a pig in a giant bucket of mud. I just can't wait to get some of these guys onto the teams and us to get rolling.
As St. Louis is on the clock, let's quickly run down the rules for the supplementary draft for those of you who may not know what's going on. All players who did not opt out of the supplemental draft and have at least a rookie subscription are eligible to be selected. Players can be taken at any position. However, if a player is taken at a position other than the position they played in the minor leagues, every successful progression in the SFL banks to their previous SFL-M position, which they could use to sign as a free agent next offseason. Teams that have given max contracts to all players and still have cap space left could offer contracts above base copper with the remaining cap space, and there are no trades, and the order in round 5 will be the same in round 6 and 7. All players taken tonight may not return to the SFL-M. And with that out of the way, St. Louis is on the clock. Andy, they've taken a lot of picks so far in this draft. Where do you see a hole potentially in their lineup?
Yeah, I think the most obvious hole is at the running back position. The opportunity to bring on a halfback to replace Diesel Dawson, is kind of the obvious choice. It'll be interesting to see who they go with, though, Turillo. Lots of great players and lots of great personalities still on the board.
That is indeed. Damon, looking at this board, knowing that players can go at any position, throw me some names that you think it might be likely to get to the pick of the St. Louis Gladiators.
I can't throw names out there. I just can't.
It's because he can't read. That's the problem.
I can read, but I just don't want to give away names that I have on my board.
Fair enough. Let's throw it to the person without any affiliates on this draft panel. Benji, you've been watching the draft all week. You've been on a couple of these panels. Who hasn't been selected yet you think could go first tonight?
I think that's one of the interesting things about the supplemental draft is maybe all the nuances of the draft up to this point change. We were drafting players to fill specific positions, so teams were looking at specific players for those positions. We ran through primary positions and secondary positions, and tonight the draft changes. It's a supplemental draft. It's going to be really hard for this esteemed panel of experts to predict exactly who's in line to go in the supplemental draft. And so I might plead the fifth on this one again here on this first pick of the draft with St. Louis. It's going to be really hard to say who Colin and team are aiming for here with this first pick in tonight's draft.
Colin, obviously very busy, so we'll let him get to work. Back to you, Andy. If it's not a running back, because we've seen St. Louis be hesitant to take that position, is there anywhere else you could see them going with this?
Looking across their board, they also have a need, potentially at a wide receiver 3. Last year, they ran 3 receivers. This year, they put Eagle Mondavi as well as Ryan Owens under contract, both hovering around the 80-point mark. So you could make the argument that a wide receiver could also fit here as an opportunity. But to me, that running back spot, it led the way for them last year and helped a passing game that needed some help. They just took Javier Vasquez this year in the draft, and having a running back that they can spell off of in that offensive attack, to me, would pay dividends down the line for them. So I won't shy away. I'll give you some names. I think the interesting part of this draft is we're looking at personality, right, Michael? But you don't have to select a guy who doesn't want to play the position that you have available. Ezekiel Love is still on the board. He was a running back for a long time in the league. Kevin Say is still there as a running back. There's lots of good players, Cairo Martinez, who are still there as options.
Thank you, Andy. And the pick is in with just under 10 seconds to go. So we send it up to the podium and Cameron Irvine to get tonight's festivities underway.
With the 72nd pick of the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the St. Louis Gladiators select running back Cairo Martinez, Syracuse, New York. Portland is on the clock with pick 73.
Cairo Martinez is the pick at running back, just as our panel predicted. We're going to throw it now to Colin. Colin, you were in the midst of picking this player. What was your thought process behind taking Cairo Martinez?
Well, it was pretty simple, Mike. Drew Riley, as you guys know, he's now our head coach and general manager since Gerald left to get his own operation underway in Louisiana. He had talked extensively with Cairo, and there was some debate, who do we go with? But the position was spot on as far as Andy's initial thinking as running back. And we think Cairo will be a great replacement for Diesel Dawson.
Thank you, Colin. Demand quick reactions to the pick of Cairo Martinez there.
I'm excited for St. Louis there to get the running back that they wanted here in the supplemental draft, which is, most teams would have took a back in the first 4 rounds of this draft, Michael. And it just shows the patience that St. Louis have. They're willing to bring in a guy through this part of the draft and go ahead and develop him and slowly and bring him on and get him accustomed to their system.
And from the Gateway Arch to the high seas, the Portland Fleet are on the clock. They've had to fill out most of their roster in this draft, with rookies being a new team. Benji, where do you think they could go with this pick? Where are there openings on their roster?
Well, I think Portland. Portland might still be needing some help on the defensive side of the ball tonight. Wouldn't be surprised, perhaps, if they might be looking now for maybe someone else in the secondary. I think special teams is a need. Are they going to take a kicker tonight? Not quite sure, but they got a good start on this draft. They drafted a number of rookies the first several rounds. I know they're excited tonight to fill out the rest of this roster.
A live look at Nelson Lozano picking tonight for the Portland Fleet. Benji mentioned defense. Colin, do you think that's the way they go, or do they try and get another weapon for quarterback Matt South?
Well, defense is definitely a possibility here as you look at the roster. But if you're owner Jacob Yvette, you were around Kramer Jackman in Denver, and you saw how valuable Jackman was. I believe he kicked 6 field goals in one game this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if they went kicker.
Kicker is Colin's prediction. Andy, either or? And if they go defense, where do you think they go? Up front, secondary, maybe a linebacker here?
Yeah, they could slip a nickel cornerback in there. You know, whether you want to put that at free safety or cornerback, both are options. I think though, Torillo, if I was the GM of this team, they'd grab 2 defensive tackles in the opening rounds of the draft in Bernard Patterson, along with Gary Burney down at the bottom. I think you add a defensive end here to stunt those 2 tackles and assist on the front 7. I think adding an end here in this draft at some point, whether it's this round or tomorrow, would be a good move for the Portland Fleet to add some bite to that front 7. I think kicker is also a great opportunity for them. I think it's got to be one of those 3, to be honest with you.
Do you have anything other than those 3 positions, Damon? Do you think they may go with maybe a second tight end, as we've seen some teams do?
Yeah, that is very optional, going with the second tight end. I mean, also the second tight end helps you in the run game as well, for blocking and so forth. I totally agree with Andy. They could possibly go at any one of those DN spots. I'm pretty sure they would address a DN spot here in this portion of the draft. Also, they probably can go offensive line. I mean, who knows?
And with that, the selection is in for the Portland Fleet. Let's waste no time. Cameron Irvine has the pick.
With the 73rd pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Portland Fleet select defensive end Derwin Nuevo, West Covina, California. The Lone Star Glory are up with the 74th selection.
Derwin Nuevo is the pick. Andy, you had it right on the money with defensive end. It's been a few years, Andy, since you've had to build out your roster from scratch, but take me into the mind of the Portland dressing room and even the Lone Star and any of the new teams. What's it like to build a roster from scratch in the SFL?
Great question. So this year, it's definitely trickier than it's ever been, and that is part of what the SFL progressing has done to make this league so great. When I joined the league, I just needed to find, I think it was 2 golds, 3 silvers, and 5 bronzes. As Damon could kind of attest to, it was a lot easier back then. There was no draft. It was just a process of finding the right personalities. We've shifted so far from that to really building out a roster from scratch now for these new teams. And I'm actually very impressed with the way that a lot of these teams have handled it, because I think I was talking to Shan Varner this offseason and saying, man, I don't even know how I would approach filling 20 positions and interviewing that many players. I mean, for my 5 spots, talked to probably 55 players, Mike. So I can only imagine if you do the math there for 20 spots, with free agency and everything, how many you're going to fill. I think Portland specifically has done a very good job. They got some key positions out of the way in free agency, which let their draft kind of fill some of those other spots. And I think defensive end fits perfectly here, and it's a great pick.
From Portland to another one of the new teams coming in this year, the Lone Star Glory. They are on the clock now and looking to fill some positions. Colin, where might the red, white, and blue be looking?
Well, I look at the roster, look what they have so far. They have the receivers. They have the quarterback. Their defense is pretty well filled out. I think tailback, it just screams it here, because we've seen teams in this progression era try to run without a tailback and it not be very successful. I wouldn't be surprised, because there is Ezekiel Love, Kevin Say, all still available for them to choose to help out the young ace, Fennec.
Benji, do you see them going anywhere other than running back? It's been a bit of a theme so far tonight in the early stages. Teams needing running backs, taking them, as we saw with St. Louis.
Yeah, I think we might be able to expect that here. I think, we've only been through these first 2 picks here, but we're seeing a theme here. These rookies, of which I was one, we had some time before this draft to really get ourselves in good with the ownership teams, groups for these teams. And, we were speaking with these teams about the positions we'd like to play. And here we see right off the bat, first running back off the board. Cairo was the running back in the minor leagues. Derwin at the defensive end spot, he played defensive line in the minor leagues too here. So is this going to be a theme here? Lone Star needs a running back. Are they looking through the set of running backs in the minor league that they've probably already spoken to in the weeks prior leading up to the draft? I wouldn't be surprised if they have someone specifically targeted here, he or she perhaps, to fill a running back spot here for the Lone Star Glory.
All types of players here in the SFL. We are open arms to anybody who wants to join. If you're watching tonight, don't know what this is. This is a draft for the Simulation Football League. We're the world's first controllerless esport, allowing you to go from couch to field. I will explain more about that throughout the night. Right now, it's up to Cameron Irvine to announce the pick.
With the 74th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Lone Star Glory select tight end Adam Williams, Hudson, Wisconsin. London is on the clock with pick 75.
So the wait goes on for Lone Star to find their tailback as they've gone with Adam Williams, the tight end. Immediate reactions to this one, Damon.
I'm shocked here that they went tight end. That they went tight end with this one. It's a great pick. They needed a tight end here on this roster. They also have space open at receiver as well. Maybe they address either receiver or halfback in the next 2 rounds or so. You don't have 3 offensive linemen on your roster and not draft a running back. It just doesn't make sense. If you ask me, but it could be sense as for protecting your quarterback. So, but great pick here with Mr. Adam Williams, though. I do applaud this pick. Adam Williams was someone that we were looking at in Houston, but great pick for Lone Star.
As they do have 3 offensive linemen, Bobo Caudill and Rylan Caudill, and also Marty Maidenfort, and they seem to be set up to having a run-heavy offense, but still no one in the backfield. Andy, do you expect this to be addressed in later rounds, or are they going a completely different build?
It's an interesting question. I think Charles Doherty and this staff has kind of been teasing the idea that they may not run a running back. I can't tell really if that's smoke and mirrors or not. As Damon can probably attest to, the longer you see ownership around and the more you interact with them, the more you can kind of get a sense for where they're going. If anyone in the room probably would have a good idea of Charles Doherty's smoke or mirrors, you would assume it would be me. But I actually haven't talked to Charles on the phone, only through chat, which obviously can disperse some of that information. To me, I think running back is essential for this team at some point. Kind of knowing the offense and the ways that Charles likes to look at a offensive game plan. Running back last year for us was a big key with Pseudo Nakai. I know that there are ways to run an offense without a running back. Damon may be able to attest it would be very difficult. So for a new staff like Lone Star, I would imagine the easiest way and the easiest possibility and recipe for success would be picking up a running back in this supplemental draft at some point. I do want to point out there is a potential rookie named Matt Fennec who is available. Somewhere down the line that might fit. He only had 3 check-ins, so he's fairly new. But could we possibly see a Fennec to Fennec handoff at some point? It's a possibility, Michael.
Definitely so. We switch to the land of fish and chips as the London Knights are on the clock. They've gone mostly offense in this draft so far, selecting 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a fullback, and only 1 linebacker, that being their round 1 selection, Jeff Gagne. Colin, do you think they go defense here to try and bolster their defense or get another offensive player?
Knowing Liam like I do, I've of course, St. Louis and London are very much rivals to one another. Fish and chips is infamous rivalry around here. Ribs and fish. I wouldn't be surprised if Liam went defense here. It definitely is an area to be addressed. I think DBs will DB could be a spot where you could see them go.
Benji, take me inside the mind of maybe one of the draftees potentially who hasn't been selected yet, that has been talking to a bunch of teams. You know, what would you be thinking about tonight if you hadn't been selected yet?
Well, I think as a rookie, I would still be excited. So I think there was some apprehension, maybe moving through the middle rounds of the draft, players needing to play at their secondary positions. But I think if you're a rookie tonight going in the supplemental draft, there's still an air of excitement because you're going to get on the field right away with the team and you're going to make an impact, all the while building value for your preferred player down the road. So I think there's a lot of excitement in the rooms of the rookies tonight as the pick's in, Michael.
This indeed, the pick is in. Who will move across the pond to London, England? Cameron Irvine has the answer.
With the 75th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the London Knights select Eric Surrett, defensive end, Tampa, Florida. Charleston is on the clock with the 76th selection.
Another Florida player joins the SFL's ranks as Eric Surrett heads to London. Demond, we talked about them needing defense, and they went out and got it.
Yes, they absolutely did. They could really, well, I thought they were going to go to offense, probably add another wide receiver to this receiving group or so. But it is good to see them go and address that second defensive end position that they may need help with on the outside, getting around the tackles here in the SFL. But man, the state of Florida is just pushing out so much talent for this league.
Well, you've already got Andy and I down here, so.
Florida can't claim me. I'm from Ohio.
Need some Texas boys.
Yeah. Colin, you're going to be seeing Eric Surrett this season as part of the Fish and Chips rivalry, so you're going to have to scheme against this defense. What are your initial impressions of this pick?
I think it's a good pick. They already had one defensive end, and of course they have William Davidson, who can be a disruptor, as we've seen Davidson play over the years. I think it's a good pick. You know, I think London is definitely in a position to vastly improve themselves from a 2-10 record with the moves they made this offseason. And got to give kudos to Liam as well as general manager Tanner Hendricks for putting together a solid team in spite of a 2-10 record from last season.
Potentially success and stability coming from across the pond. Up next, we go to Chicago for the the Charleston Predators are on the clock as they make a selection here. Benji, when you look at this Charleston team coming off of their first playoff appearance and looking to go one better, how do they do so with this pick?
Yeah, Charleston only had one pick so far in the draft, and they went offensive line with Butch Minner. I think that they have some holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball. I think we might see something. I think they could fill potentially a spot on the D-line, linebacker, or the defensive backfield there, maybe with an extra cornerback. But my money might be on something up front. Front seven, defensive end, defensive tackle, or linebacker might be my bet for the Predators.
Benji thinks front seven. Andy, do you agree?
End could work on the front seven side. Their secondary is pretty much laced out. They could potentially add a third wide receiver at some point. I could also see another offensive lineman going here. I know Charleston was interested in that. And then maybe a sleeper pick of a fullback. Keith Swearingen has been a pretty solid back for Charleston, but kind of, could use that next oomph. Maybe getting a blocker in the backfield could help propel him to being one of the better backs in the league for Charleston, which could combine with TD Drew and that passing game of Buchanan Simons to really set off the Predators. So I'll think blocking help.
Another offensive lineman, says Andy. Colin, you've been in this position now for basically every SFL draft. Does it get any easier to, sift through all the potential players and, get your guy?
Well, it gets easier because you know what you're looking for in terms of character and how a guy interacts with people based on guys that you've signed in the past. We've seen Charleston run a lot of two tight ends, and they re-signed them both. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they went with a fullback or perhaps another offensive lineman, because TD Drew did get sacked an awful lot last year, and it could pave the way for Keith. So I kind of have to agree with Andy. Perhaps another offensive lineman.
Perhaps paving the way for a power running game in Charleston. Demond, you also have been around a while, but when you look at the rookies potentially that are still on the board, is it an advantage to you to potentially take someone maybe lower down the board, but at a position they played in the minor league, or maybe someone with more weeks banked at an off position?
That's a good question. I would say more weeks bank at an off position. Me personally, I just feel that would be a benefit, to me and my team, because that way, and here in the supplement, if I draft you at a different position, I can we can, come up with ways as far as we can restructure your height, your weight, and so forth, and all that, and then work with the player as far as what their rating should be and so forth. Because some players, man, that music scared the heck out of me. Give me a warning, Commish. Give me a warning, please. But
the sound is the warning, Demond.
But that's about it. I would just love to have it just where I can draft it at the position that is desired for the team.
And with that, the pick is in. Let's go to Cam and Irvine to find out who will be the next Charleston Predator.
I'll give you a warning next time, Damon. Be on the lookout. It's coming.
I bet it could be something like.
Oh, gosh.
With the 76th pick in the SFL Season 15 rookie draft, the Charleston Predators select offensive lineman Fred Dukes, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Chicago's on the clock with the 77th pick.
Charleston gets the hometown player from South Carolina. They go offensive line, and Andy, you were the first one, I think, to bring up the fact that they may go that way. So what's your reaction to this pick?
I like the pick. I think Fred is a great guy. I talked to him a lot on the phone. He's a good guy. It's a great pick for Charleston, and I'm interested to see where they take his career.
Colin, what are the benefits of taking offensive line as opposed to bolstering a secondary or maybe a defensive lineman? Because in the past couple of seasons, we've definitely seen a shift to where offensive line is more popular.
Well, it is a benefit because we saw Andy in Vancouver take 2 offensive linemen last draft. And Tom Pepper was sacked only 21 times all season. And the next guy, I think, was like maybe plus 10 at total. So I think that opened a lot of people's eyes. And, and you have to deal with a lot of guys like Alex Dominguez, or guys like that up front. Tackle in particular, I think, is going to be where you're going to see a lot of these linemen slot into.
Chicago is on the clock. There you see Shan Varner studiously studying his options. Chicago, one of 4 teams, as well as Carolina, Sioux Falls, and Arizona, who are making their first picks tonight, who filled out their entire roster through free agency and did not pick in the first 4 rounds of the draft. So with your entire base roster already filled out, Demond, how do you go forward with the pick of the supplemental round? What do you look for?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
Like, if a team like Chicago, how do you think about drafting for the supplemental round since you've already filled out your base roster before the draft even started?
Basically, where you can receive extra help from. let's see here. If they needing Chicago Wildcats, they probably can go with a defensive end here, defensive tackle. I know they're not going to go linebacker because they love to run the nickel 4-2 set. So they hardly ever are in a multiple linebacker set where there's 3 or more linebackers or so forth. So I'm not going to expect them to go linebacker here. Most likely D tackle or D end. I'm going to say D end for sure. Lock me in.
Demond wants to lock in D and Benji. Do you agree?
I don't think that's a terrible pick at all. I think that's a great idea. I think that with the offensive lineman going the previous pick, emphasis on offense in this league, would the Wildcats do something crazy like add another tight end, add an offensive lineman to try and focus on that side of the ball? Perhaps we see lots of teams beefing up on the offensive side of the ball, going offense when perhaps we're seeing them go defense. But I do agree there are some spots they could slot a draft pick in on this defensive side of the ball here. Defensive end or defensive tackle would be a great pickup by the Wildcats here.
Andy, we've talked a little bit in this draft so far about how the supplemental draft rounds are a little bit more about personality than straight up build, because those builds can be adjusted. As an owner, what do you look for in someone that, doesn't necessarily going to get to play their primary position? What do you look for personality-wise?
Yeah, good question. I think it's different for each guy and each position when I walk in the room to talk to them. Some guys, are interested in coaching. That is a big indicator, but really it's what you can bring off the field, right? Whether it's social media, graphics, video, or, some of the other stuff, coaching, scouts, stats. There's so much to do in this league. And the more you're willing or able to do at a high level, the more it rises and builds your stock. So for me, when I look at a guy, I want a guy who's going to help contribute off the field. And then, it comes down to personality. Everyone has a feel for someone, people they like, people they dislike. I look for honesty, right? When I talk to a guy, I want him to tell me, who he is as a person, but do it in a way that I, can feel that he's being genuine with me, because, there are guys who will sell themselves on you, and that's great. And I think that's part of the process. But the other part is, buying the right player, in a sense. If someone is selling you on them and the way that they sell you is one way, and then the guy you get in the locker room is a different way, that's not good for your franchise, because then you have disgenuine people in the room. So I think for me, the one thing that you want to make sure that you do is talk to a player and get to know who he really is, down to his core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, locker room culture is so important here in the SFL. And I really didn't know that until I was signed to a team some 3.5 years after I actually joined the league. So, it's amazing to see all these rookies coming in and getting involved right away with a team. And that was great to see through the SFLM. As we get down to the end of the clock here, nothing yet from Chicago. Colin, looking at Chicago with what? Oh, the pick is in. Let's go to the booth. Cam?
With the 77th selection in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Chicago Wildcats select Danny Stinson, defensive tackle, Franklin, Tennessee. Denver's on the clock with the 78th pick.
Once again, our panel is right on the money. So, Colin, I'll go to you for your reaction on defensive tackle Danny Stinson.
Well, you definitely need those stuffers up the middle. They can definitely be good pass rushers. Certainly not to the degree defensive ends are. It'll be interesting to see how Shannon builds Mr. Stinson out, but I think it's a good selection, and it makes their front seven even more fierce.
We now move to the Mile High City, Denver on the clock. The Night Wings selecting now. Benji, when you look at this Nightwings roster, what stands out to you of the people they've drafted so far, and where do you think they could go this pick?
Well, they added some defense early. The stat man made a big splash early in the draft with his appointment to the Nightwings. They did go defense heavy there first. Looking at the roster right now, the Nightwings like to play good defense. I could see possibly adding some help on the D line, for instance. They went with the Juice, teammate of mine from the Birmingham Fuel in the minor leagues, and he was a great pickup for them. He's going to play defensive end. So I still think that they might be able to find a partner for him then across that line at D end. And there's a slot open at D tackle perhaps too for the Nightwings, but wouldn't be surprised to see him bolster up that defensive front.
We've seen offensive line become more and more popular. Demond, why do you think that is over the past couple of seasons?
The guy is right here on the panel with us who set the trend for offensive linemen. I give him all kudos for that. I even wrote an article about it on a website and so forth. But Andy Hamilton really set the trend for offensive linemen in this league, and I think he deserves the credit for that. He saw that there was a need at that position due to the fact that the defensive line was getting pretty stout here in the SFL. And there's a look at the man himself, Jeremy.
Oh boy,
that is a nice setup right there. I think I'm about to trash mine and go back to the Best Buy and pick up some more stuff.
It's a nice tan. It's a beautiful looking man right there.
But Michael, I hope I answered your question for you.
Yeah, that was great. Jeremy Vega on your screen got the great Nightwings merch in the background on the wall as he gears up to make this selection. And my leading question about offensive line is, you think maybe another offensive lineman goes off the board here to help Jared McChesney get a kickstart, Colin?
I think so. They already have one offensive lineman, so a second one here would make a whole lot of sense for the Nightwings here. We've seen how explosive McChesney can be without any offense. So I would think if you add two to the equation, it'd be just gravy at this point.
I just have one thing to say. Did you see the championship ring on Jeremy's finger? My goodness, that thing is big.
Well, I'm going to go back to Benji real quick because you mentioned the Birmingham Fuel, which was your minor league team this past season, was the first for the SFLM. And since you are the only one on the panel today that can kind of speak to being involved with the SFLM, I want to give us basically a 500-foot overview of what being involved with the first season of the minor league was like.
It was fantastic. It was great. I think coming in around the 1st of April, maybe I'll speak here. Maybe a lot of rookies can agree with this. When I first saw the SFL, I had no idea what I was looking at. I just knew it looked really pretty cool and something I definitely want to be a part of. I think the minor leagues were a fantastic way to get this rookie class involved right off the bat. A lot of credit to the wonderful coaches too of all 8 of these teams. Even more so than just putting game plans together and driving the buses to the stadiums. These coaches worked with all of the players. I can only speak for Coach Adam and the Fuel, but I know all the coaches listening today are proud of the draft picks that have gone off the board already and the picks that will be made today. And they were a fantastic help in helping all the rookies understand the way the game is played, what they can expect out of the league, and what types of experiences they can look forward to when they get drafted to a team. And so I think the coaches in the minor leagues were fantastic and really did a lot for the players. And I know I was excited to go on the first night of the draft, and all the rookies were excited to go. I think the minor league experience in year one, I would say, was a success. I hope Cam feels the same way too. And I know looking forward to the next season of the minor leagues, I think the excitement and level of involvement and the number of participants will be huge again. But it was a fantastic experience.
We're about to find out who goes to the Mile High City. The Nightwings pick is in. Cameron Irvine with the selection.
With the 78th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Denver Nightwings select D'Amico Ryans, offensive line, Houston, Texas. Houston is on the clock with the 79th pick.
From Houston to the Mile High City, D'Amico Ryans comes off the board, and another offensive lineman going to the SFL. Mr. Trendsetter Andy Hamilton, let's get your reaction.
Oh man, come on! Don't call me that. No, I think offensive line's great. From what I've seen and tested with offensive line, and this shouldn't be a secret to anyone, so I'm not really blowing any barn doors off. 2 is better than 1, right? So having a second offensive lineman go to Denver, I think, is actually a really good move by Jeremy. I actually, this is an interesting pick, Michael. We saw, I don't know, I'm in general a lot, right? I like to watch. I like to watch people talk, and every once in a while I'll throw some 2 cents in. D'Amico Ryans actually, in general, at some point said, I'll play any position, including offensive line. And I watched Jeremy Vega say, send me a direct message. And here with pick 78, we watch it come to fruition, and it makes me laugh a little bit. That's one of the only times I have watched a first encounter between an owner and someone he ends up selecting later in the draft. So I think that's really awesome. I think it goes also to show, Michael, what some of these rookies can do, right? Sometimes it's all about that one-on-one conversation, right? Owners had, roughly 300 players and builds to evaluate this season. Mm-hmm. So if a rookie goes out of their way to say, hey, I'm interested to do these 3 positions for you, that helps us narrow the field, right? I've had guys who have been blowing up my DMs all draft weekend and week saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still available. While at times, if you overdo it, it can be annoying. If you do it the right amount, it keeps you top of mind. Whether it's in general saying, hey, I'm the best, wide receiver still available. I'm just saying, or direct messaging owners who may need a wide receiver on their team and saying, hey, just so you know, I'm available. It goes a long way to put yourself out there and be confident. And D'Amico Ryans did that, and I'm glad that he got paid off here in Denver. It's a great pick, and I think he'll pair with Benazzi really well.
It's all about being proactive here in the SFL.
Yes.
The Houston Hyenas are on the clock. That would be Devon's team, so we will pass over him for now and go to Colin Northup. Colin, where do you see possibly a hole on this Houston team or somewhere where they can try to bolster?
I think, you've seen them go fullback, defensive end, defensive tackle, and linebacker. I think they could use another wide receiver. I think they could go a 3rd wide receiver or possibly a tight end. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Just to help out Kentez a little bit,
Well, the Houston Hyenas wasting no time. The pick is already in. Cameron Irvine, give us the news.
With the 79th pick in the SFL Season 15 rookie draft, the Houston Hyenas select defensive tackle Mike Baker, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Louisiana's on the clock with the 80th pick.
No time for predictions, no time for reactions as Mike Baker goes to the Houston Hyenas. Demond, you look very happy over there. You got your guy?
I'm super excited. I got my guy, man. Got my guy. I'm super excited. I mean, Mike wanted to be a part of the team and the organization and so forth. He has ties with our defensive coordinator and also vice president of player operations, Ethan Kai, with the Albuquerque Adams from the SFLM. So there's some ties right there and so forth. So he was excited when we reached out to him and let him know that we was looking at him and wanted to bring him aboard.
And defensive tackle is interesting because you have already a defensive tackle there in Tita Begin that you already picked in this draft. What was the thought process maybe behind signing a second one?
These offensive linemen that are being selected in the SFL, I got to beef up on the defensive line. Also, if you only have one defensive lineman on your team, that one defensive lineman will be double teamed by the by the guard and the left guard and the center on the offensive line. So I had to get an extra weapon on that defensive line to help out, to pretty much try to pull away from that double team.
Let's hear from Benji what he thinks about Mike Baker. How do you think another defensive tackle will slot into this Houston defense?
It's a terrible pick. Terrible pick. No, that's a great pick. I think he's spot on right there. We've talked O-line. Well, what's the natural counter to O-line in the SFL? You need some big bodies on the defensive side of the ball to occupy the big bodies on the offensive side. So I think that's a fantastic pick. You can't go wrong adding another big body to the front there. So congrats.
Thank you, Benji.
We turn our attention to the Bayou. The Louisiana Revolution are on the clock. Another one of the newer teams in the league. Obviously, strong ties to both London and St. Louis. So I'll go to Colin. How do you see your former teammates going with this selection?
Well, I look at the roster. They have two corners. They have a linebacker. They have a couple people up front. And they really could go fullback here. I could see that. Just an extra weapon out of the backfield for Johnny Pickler.
Yeah, Louisiana probably making the strongest offseason free agency moves, really, of any team. Andy, what do you think about potentially a fullback for Regis Streeter? And to a broader point, how do you think that free agency, perhaps now going forward, would be have more influence on future drafts?
Yeah, so I think, free agency has an incredible impact on the draft, right? If you lose some key positions and you want to keep your build or change your build, you have to get guys in free agency to supplement that. For Louisiana, I think this is the pick that will define their franchise. They've filled out a ton of traditional positions, right? Defensive line, receivers, secondary linebackers, halfback, quarterback. They pretty much have everything traditional. Now's the question of where do they go? That is a little bit of a wild card, and I'm really interested to see where they go here.
Andy putting real gravitas on the 80th selection in the draft. Cam, let's hear about it.
With the 80th pick in the SFL's Season 15 Season 15 rookie draft, the Louisiana Revolution select Matt Fennec, kicker. Mexico City's on the clock with the 81st pick.
We mentioned that Fennec could go. I think it was Andy that mentioned Fennec could go. He goes at the kicker position, first special teamer off the board tonight. Devon, your reaction?
Nice pick here by Louisiana. Matt Fennec was a player that we were targeting as well. Probably was going to get him in the 6th round or so, or 7th round for that kicker spot. But a great pickup here for Louisiana. They're getting an outstanding player.
A potential Fennec versus Fennec battle if Louisiana plays Lone Star this season. We've seen it, and it's been a trend for a while, beginning with maybe this team that's next on the clock, Mexico City. But kickers have been a need to have rather than a commodity, really, in the last 5 seasons. Andy, do you think this is a good pick for them?
It's for a wild card, it's about as straight to the vest as you can play it. Kicker is not, the wild card I was looking for. I was looking for a fullback, offensive line, another member of the defensive line, something out of the blue. Kicker, it gets some special teams done, but we've seen a lot of teams do kicker with success. So I don't think it's a bad pick by any regard. I am interested to see Fennec go there. I wonder if, Damon said he was going to take him in the 6th. I wonder if Lone Star was sitting there in the 6th, also having an eye on him to have a Fennec and Fennec connection. And maybe now they're kind of scratching their head going, oh, maybe we should have picked him in the 5th. that's the type of thing with this draft that you're going to see is picks go in different places. And you kind of just got to grit your teeth and pick whoever you like that is there when the time comes up. I've been telling it to all the rookies I talk to is like, this year is so different because I can't predict where anyone's going. I just have to see who's there when my pick comes up. And you love the excitement. And I think for Louisiana, adding a kicker will be good.
We talked a lot on the Tuesday panel about picking potentially being more than just getting a player. It's blocking other teams from getting that same player. Colin, as an owner, is that something that goes through your head when you're selecting these draftees?
Sometimes, but it'll mostly come up after the fact. Or sometimes teams will do it to you. They'll take a guy at a position you wanted, so you have to scramble all of a sudden and hope that another guy on the board is a good plan B in case plan A always falls through.
Good logic.
We look to the Mexico City Aztecs. They have fixed their gaping hole in the backfield by promoting Phoenix Jones to running back. Benji, is there anywhere else that they could look to shore up before the next season begins?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about what has transpired here leading up to the draft with Phoenix, and now, of course, Phoenix leaves a hole at fullback. What's Mexico City going to do there? Are they going to choose to address that need? Or are they going to look beyond that? I could see them adding another wide receiver. They added a second tight end earlier in the draft, so they're beefing up that offensive side of the ball. Second tight end provides another key offensive lineman for the run game, so to speak. So they're beefing up that side of the ball. Will they go fullback? They drafted the Crim Reaper early in the draft, and he's filling a big spot for them at the defensive tackle. There's another spot up for grabs there on that defensive line too, for Mexico City. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with this pick, but maybe a need there on the defensive line, and possibly we'll see what they do if they choose to address that hole at fullback.
We talked about them potentially getting a fullback on Tuesday, and they eventually went for KT Horrell. Demond, as someone who deals with both sides of the ball, but the offense in particular, how does a fullback help you both in the passing game and in the running game?
Well, there are routes in this game where that the fullback does go out on probably 5. I know there's one play where there's fullback goes out. I want to say it's a fade.
Warning, the pick is coming soon. Warning, the pick is coming soon.
Look out, Demond. I think the pick might be coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nice warning count. I thought it was a tornado there. That's what it sounded like. But yeah, I mean, you can do a lot with the fullback. I mean, a multi-task individual can block for you, can run the ball for you as well. You can put him in the passing game as well. Can do just a whole lot of things for you. Play special teams also. So you get a great pick with the fullback position. But I absolutely think that they're going to go wide receiver here. They only have 2. And Mexico City is a team that is known for having 3 wide receivers on their roster.
We will see where the Aztecs decide to go right now. Here's Cameron Irvine.
With the 81st pick in the SFL Season 15 rookie draft, the Mexico City Aztecs select defensive tackle Scott Stover, Nowata, Oklahoma. Carolina's on the clock with the 82nd pick.
The second defensive tackle selection of this draft for Mexico City. He will join Andre Krim down there in the middle of the D-line. Andy, you seem to be pretty happy with that one. Your thoughts?
Great pick. Scott Stover is very active. He's all over Discord. There have been some discussions, and I think some important ones about activity and what activity is good activity. And I personally am on the train of, look, if you're active, if you are around, I can help a guy understand what is good and what is bad activity. there's good and bad activity from all levels. There's times when I post things that some people may deem as bad activity. We're all learning. And I think Scott Stover is a guy who's going to help the Mexico City franchise move forward and kind of build this new wave. Him and Krim on that defensive line are going to be incredible. I can't wait to watch that. I mean, that's just going to be a mess for other teams as those two big guys in the middle demolish centers and guards across the league. I'm real interested to see what Ramos does with those front two.
We're going to have to come up with some duo nickname for Krim and Stover, and we'll talk about that off air. Colin, the second defensive tackle brings them to 4 D linemen on the side of Mexico City. Do you think that filling out your defensive line is a good idea, and contrast that to maybe going with a stronger secondary?
Well, these it works both ways. I mean, if you fill it your secondary coverage, you don't get a good pass. But if you get a good pass rush, you get enough guys there at quarterback, running up blitzes, you know. Ramos is very crafty when it comes to defense. Right up there with Eddie in terms of his defensive prowess. I've seen him do a lot of things, a lot of defensive builds. So it ultimately gives him flexibility going forward. You know, Scott's definitely the kind of guy who, like Andy said, is active and can fill that sort of Bentley-shaped hole in terms of, like, activity.
Oh, it's Harish.
It is Harish Prasad. The Skyhawks are on the clock. Yeah, being my team, I will quickly move on from me. This is another one of the teams that have not picked yet because they filled out their entire base roster in free agency. Demand, Carolina trying to get out of a couple of seasons of downturn. Where do you think they go with this pick?
I absolutely see Carolina going defensive end right here. Maybe possibility over O-line, but I'm going to go DN. That's going to be my lock pick.
That's amazing.
Wow. I thought Torillo, he was going to neck that beer the way that he prepared it. It seemed like he was going for the Jeremy Vega from the earlier rounds where he finished it off, and he just took a little sip. I mean, what was that?
Wow.
I mean, this is a meme looking if I've ever seen one. I mean, this guy, the Skyhawks, I'm sorry to take over here a little bit, Torillo, but
go for it.
You guys didn't have a pick in the first 2 rounds, and I think Harish Prasad has just been preparing for this pick the whole time. He went out and got a bobblehead, a beer, a framed photo of someone, and some cherries, and the sunglasses, and he said, you know what, 82nd pick, it's my time. I'm going to become a meme. So
this is a guy who's already become a meme. Remember, he fell down on the floor at the convention in Atlanta when his player got hurt on the very first play from scrimmage.
I'm interested to see if the 82nd pick is a meme. I mean, whoever comes in here, is fitting in with a good locker room team, Torillo, and you don't need to say it. I'll say it for you. I mean, bringing in Levant Irvine was big for this Carolina Skyhawks team. To have Harish and Trevon in there, as well as yourself, Mr. Torillo, and then to build on that this offseason, Sully Richardson. Carolina retains players like it's nobody's business. James Klein, they have a Logan Jack, which has been revitalized this season. I think Carolina is an interesting team heading into this season to watch as somewhat of a dark horse. They have a great locker room, and whoever's coming in here at 82 is going to be fitting in with a very solid team and a very solid group. It's almost like a pack of brothers, and I'm really interested to see where you guys go here and see who you add to the team.
Yeah, it's definitely a family atmosphere in Carolina. We like to have a lot of fun. We all get all together and watch the games on Discord, and it's just a very close-knit group of people, and I'm excited for whoever comes in. But let's quickly move away from my personal opinion. Benji, keeping on the topic of locker room dynamics, is there something as a draftee potentially that you might look for that maybe you would say, I want to go to this kind of locker room or that kind of locker room and pursue those owners in a different way?
I think that it's already been mentioned here. Like Andy's mentioned, he's been in Gen Chat. A lot of owners like to watch Gen Chat. One of the things that I'll speak to as a rookie, one of the things I did right away is I was watching the owners in Gen Chat. I was watching team leadership, trying to get a feel for their personalities as well, and reached out to some of those persons that I thought, well, I might be a good fit, probably, maybe for this team. So I reached out to them. I was monitoring chat to see how they were behaving, and they were all perfect angels at all times. And likewise, the owners were doing for the rookies too, kind of watching how things would develop in Gen Chat, seeing how those personalities blossomed or flourished, or confrontations that arose, etc. So I think that's one thing that rookies were doing at the same time. Is we were all wide-eyed and not really knowing what to expect early on, and maybe even rookies having to work up the nerve to inch themselves into Gen Chat and start communicating for the first time. And of course, as we got closer to the draft, all the rookies were setting up shop in those channels, trying to say hello, trying to make a name for themselves. So it was a unique process to watch all the rookies as we came into the league throughout the minor league season, and then approaching the draft as we began to hop on into the Gen Chat and say hello. But that was something I did too, is I kind of watched to see what are the personalities of the ownership groups in this league, and where might I possibly be a good fit for one of those groups. So that's something that I did as a rookie, looking at these groups in the SFL.
The pick is in from Carolina. Cameron Irvine, who is the next Skyhawk?
With the 82nd pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Carolina Skyhawks select Chad Neville's free safety. Arizona's on the clock with the 83rd selection.
Chad Neville's is the selection. Welcome home. I'll see you in the locker room, I'm sure. But as for a more analytical look at the pick, we throw it to Andy Hamilton. Carolina had a very strong secondary last season, and they look to do so again with this pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I actually talked to Chad Neville's between rounds 4 and now 5 to kind of get the feel on what he may be looking to do in the pros. And I think secondary for Carolina, that's an interesting fit. Now they have 3 free safeties on the roster. If it's correct, I don't think that is actually. I think Tony Zoma is a fullback that accidentally marked it free safety on my sheet. I'm just messing up all over here. So the second free safety adds basically a nickel back, which is a good position to have as teams can expand rosters, potentially have 3 or 4 receivers. Having a slot corner is always going to be a good option. And for Chad Neville's, it's a great fit. The guy's active, hasn't missed a check-in, and is a really good place for him to go. So I think it's a great fit for Chad. It's a great fit for Carolina. I'm loving this pick. I'm loving the Skyhawks, and I'm looking forward to seeing what James Klein, Harish Prasad, and the boys can do.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, the Arizona Scorpions are on the clock, and they prepare to make their first selection in franchise history. As you see Eddie Gage there on the phone with potentially the first Scorpions draft pick in history. Damon, you have very close ties to this Scorpions team. Let me know where you think they could go with this selection.
As of right now, I have no idea. I'm gonna go with this selection. Find their their roster here. Where are you, Skyhawks? I mean, Arizona. See everything. Anything else on the defense? Maybe linebacker, but I doubt it. Ed is not the type of guy that's going to go with 3 linebackers, I don't think. But I'm going to say that they address fullback. I'm going to go fullback here.
It's the only position on the team besides special teams they don't have any of.
Slot corner. They could use an extra secondary member too.
Yeah, you're right. They could.
That is a distinct possibility. Colin, you know Eddie loves his defense, but do you see them going offense here or sticking with that defensive side of the ball?
Slot corner is definitely a possibility, but this Scorpion team at times struggled to score offensively last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they went and go get a kicker. That shortens the amount of yards you have to go as an offense, so you have a better opportunity to score points. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie went kicker.
We've seen one kicker taken already tonight. Andy, do you agree, or do you think that maybe a second tight end or something a little more off the wall could be on tap here?
It's a good question. To me, I don't know. I'm a little different. The way I look at kickers is if I put the ball in the end zone, I don't need a kicker. I'm not 100% sure how Eddie Gage kind of looks at it. You could argue either way. Kicker is definitely a possibility here. It would not shock me. I also could see a fullback coming in to help block for DJ Moses. That would be an interesting move, one that would be a little off the wall. Second tight end could also interest me. Lots of possibilities. Arizona's in kind of the same boat that we saw Louisiana in, where they filled a lot of their normal positions, and now it's time to get wild, if you will.
We've seen a couple of teams go for second tight ends in this draft. Mexico City Chief among them. Damon, does that give you maybe an extra weapon on offense if you go second tight end, or does it end up, you think, clogging the middle too much?
I don't think it clogs the middle up too much. As I stated, you can use that second tight end as to block when you go in a heavy jumbo formation, which a lot of teams like to call, I think it's 11 personnel, something like that, or so. You can also, it can become an extra threat to you downfield as well. So you can have the one tight end playing the sideline on the right side of the field, have the other tight end playing the right sideline on the left side of the field, or one playing the middle, one going across the middle, or so forth like that. So it's a lot of things that you can do with two tight ends within your offensive package or so. But let's just remember, Ed is a defensive guy. I don't think he would know how to use two tight ends.
Ooh.
Sorry about the jab.
Easy.
Sorry about the jab.
The jab coming out from Damon.
He's not even here to defend himself.
Yeah.
I love it.
With
That's my best friend.
Just over 3:30 left to go on the clock here for Arizona. Benji, we've kind of run the gamut of all their possibilities. Look, taking a step back from, team needs specifically, looking at the players left on the board as a broad stroke, throw me some names that haven't been selected that you could think could go in the next couple of picks.
Well, that's a tough one. One of the things that owners can be looking for in these spots is leadership. Someone that they can bring into their locker room in the supplemental draft that can be a strong part of the culture moving forward. We've talked about that already tonight. And so, just looking across the rosters, we see names like running backs, Ezekiel Love still on the board, Kevin Say still on the board, Cameron Curtis is still on the board. And I'm not quite sure what some of the supplemental statuses are of those quarterbacks, for instance, but there's some good characters in here with great leadership potential. And an owner like Eddie would love to add someone like that to that Scorpions locker room. We already know they're going to be a formidable force this year, and the locker room itself is representative of that. And so I think that that could be something he's looking here to do, bring in some extra leadership. And we all know you can never have too many tight ends, so that's possibly something that could be happening here. Why not bring extra leadership into your locker room at that tight end position while we're talking about it? That'd be a smart move to make.
Will there be a sting in the tail with this selection? Let's find out. To the podium we go. Here's Cameron Irvine.
With the 83rd pick of the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Arizona Scorpions select Shawn Crooked, offensive line, Brooklyn, New York. Fort Worth's on the clock with the 84th pick.
Something we didn't mention, offensive line. It's been kind of the flavor of the evening. Colin, DJ Moses II didn't have the most production out of the backfield for Arizona last season. How far does this pick go in shoring up that run game?
It goes very far, particularly we'll have to see where Eddie puts the this player, but if he puts him at guard in particular, I think it'll bode well for their halfback, DJ Moses, Ashley Jackson. They'll take fewer hits. There's a lot of flexibility.
We've worked the offensive line angle a lot tonight because they keep getting picked up. And we've even worked, why they're getting picked up, what they could do with them. Andy, going back to last season, I want to know what your initial thoughts were when you decided to go offensive line for the first time and kind of, I don't want to say set that trend, but be the first person to maybe test the waters.
Sure. Yeah. I think the way was paved for me with other people setting the trend on different positions, whether it be fullback or defensive line. I think, Max Paul, Ramos Lynn, even with the kicker, there are a lot of guys before me who have tried stuff out. So I don't look at myself in any regard as someone to look after. When I looked at offensive line, I simply looked at, there's guys on the defensive line who are star players, right? And they're mostly, they're 99, 100% of the time going against a generic offensive lineman, a non-star, if you will. And it's so simple in terms of math when you look at the potential for a defensive line to beat a generic every single time. And I just went, look, if there's a way that I can slow that down, I'm going to give it a shot. I did some testing and it worked out. And as we see Robert Garrett Jr. there in the cowboy hat again, it really wasn't the Wild West in terms of trying to figure out the best way to go about it. It was just a simple process of, I think this might work. I'm going to put in the work in the offseason to test it. I did it. It looked good. I went with it at the urging and strong suggestion of Charles Doherty, who in some ways suggested we even go with more offensive linemen. And it worked out really well for us. I think I learned quite a bit from it. And I am very excited for a lot of these other teams in this league to experience offensive linemen, because I really think, Michael, over the next 4 to 5 seasons, it's going to be an opportunity to grow this league and an opportunity for a lot of guys to get in the league. 5 offensive line players per team across the board. I mean, there's so much opportunity and it could help so much. I'm super excited about the offensive line position. Who doesn't love a big boy?
Is there a cooler cat in the SFL right now than Robert Garrett Jr.? The cigar, the cowboy hat, the team-colored wall behind him as he picks for the Fort Worth Toros. This will be the Toros' 9th selection, Damond. With how busy Fort Worth has been, does it get tiring after a while, just sifting through pick after pick after pick?
It doesn't get tiring as you're doing that, or you, if you're the team that's submitting the picks. It get tired for us who are sitting here watching them make all these picks.
Yes.
Because we want to be the team that is out there, pushing to have these picks come into us. But the Toros have been doing an outstanding job, and I think they have one of the best drafts thus far in this year's draft.
Not much time to wait. The pick is in. Up to the podium. Here's Cam.
With the 84th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Fort Worth Toros select Cameron Curtis, wide receiver, Springfield, Massachusetts. Vancouver's on the clock with the 85th pick.
The first of the quarterbacks for the SFL-M to go at a secondary position today has gone off the board. Cameron Curtis, we saw him do great things with the Annapolis Navigators in this last SFL-M season. Colin, do you think he could replicate that with the Fort Worth Toros?
I think he can. He's definitely a guy who's shown leadership, and he's moving to a new position in wide receiver, yes. But think of who he has to learn from. He has to learn from Stephen Hacker. And think about the numbers that Hacker's put up. And, you got Cade Stevens as well. A guy that Andy Hamilton is certainly very familiar with. So he's got a lot of veterans to learn the craft of how to be a wide receiver. So it's a great pick. both on the field wise as well as personality. You know, Cameron Curtis is always around during SFLM games.
Definitely one to watch coming up. And he's got great mentorship, as you said, from Stephen Hacker and Cade Stevens. Benji, you went up against Annapolis in this past season, so you got a firsthand look at Cameron Curtis, although not on the field at the same time. What impressed you about his quarterbacking skills that maybe could translate over to the wide receiver position?
Well, he was a great leader for Annapolis. I think that when we played the Fuel, we got up on him early and slow and steady. He led the Navigators back for the victory there, played a good game. And so I think we had mentioned leadership in the locker room previously when I was talking about the Scorpions and Eddie and mentioned Cameron Curtis. And here he goes, next pick to the Toros. They're enjoying a great offseason. Xander Gold coming back. Great pickup in Chris Kamasak at the fullback position earlier in the draft. And so Cameron's going to round out this offense by slotting in here at this third wide receiver position. We already mentioned he's going to have great tutelage underneath Stephen Hacker. So I think he's just another great personality to slot right into this Toros team. And they can continue to be excited as they look forward to the start of season 15.
We move to the north, and the Vancouver Legion on the clock. We'll let Andy Hamilton do his thing and go to Damon Simeon. Vancouver's had 2 picks, Damon. They've both been defensive end. Where do you think they move on from here?
Let's take a look here. Knowing Andy, he may go offensive line.
There are no offensive linemen currently on the Vancouver Legion right now, so it's a very distinct possibility.
Absolutely. There aren't any at all. They may go second tight end, or they may go fullback. I wouldn't be surprised if seeing the Legion come away with the fullback here with this pick. That's what I'm going to lock in. I'm going to lock in fullback for Vancouver.
Potentially getting a clear lane for Robert Redford to run into. Robert Redford, one of the steals of the free agency market, Colin, and there was a lot of running back movement this season. Just give me your take on what What may make a player decide to test the free agency market as opposed to just re-signing immediately with a team in the offseason?
It can be a lot of factors. Some of it can be that the player is not feeling that they're being used to their best potential. Some of it might be just a personality clash with teammates. Others, it might just be the lack of team success that the team is having, even if a player is putting up great personal statistics. It can be a variety of reasons a guy chooses to move on.
And it creates a void for a team to fill, be that in free agency as well or in the draft. We've seen a couple of running backs go late, and maybe later than we thought. I'll throw it back to you, Damon. A lot of us expected running backs to go early. That didn't happen. Why do you think that is? Well,
probably because it wasn't really a chain of command. I mean, not chain of command. Lord have mercy. It wasn't. It wasn't a demand for them to go so early. You know, it wasn't a lot of teams that needed running backs. So that could be a reason why teams that needed running backs didn't select them pretty early. That's why they waited here, later in the draft and here for the supplement.
The Vancouver Legion pick is in. Let's go to Cameron Irvine for the call.
With the 85th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Vancouver Legion select Mike Nutone's offensive lineman, Vancouver, Canada. Baltimore is on the clock with the 86th pick.
Well, we've been talking about it all night and mostly getting the opinions of the offensive line master himself, Mr. Andy Hamilton. Now he gets a chance to pick one up. Andy, let's have your reaction to this pick.
Yeah, we talked to Mike early in the process and really got to know him and who he might be. Came into the league rather late in the minor league draft process. But he was excited. He was passionate, and is really the type of guy you want on your franchise in terms of, being willing to be the guy who helps your franchise get to where it needs to be. We talked to him about a lot of different potential positions, offensive line being one of them that he was interested in. And Mike, fits with our organization from that passion standpoint. I just got off the phone with him. He's super excited, was actually born in Vancouver, Canada. So bringing a guy back across the border to Canada to be our franchise left tackle, I'm super excited about it. He's going to be a part of this team for a long time, and I can't wait to get him in the locker room.
Just a quick note, the 3 players Vancouver Legion have selected tonight, or this draft rather, are Michael Percoco, Mike Coverson, and now Mike Nutone. So
Yeah.
Mike, and Mike on the lines for.
I'm looking
Vancouver.
for an Ike to really complete this draft, but I don't know if there is one. So if your name is Mike, hit me up. I might be willing to pick you next round.
It's just making it all the more confusing for us broadcasters. We move forward to perennial contenders, the Baltimore Vultures. We know their run game is almost second to none. Benji, where can they look to bolster themselves up for this upcoming season?
Well, sticking with the theme of the run game there, on that offensive side of the ball, we see a hole at the fullback position. That might be something they're looking to address. No offensive lineman at the moment. That could change here shortly for Baltimore. Let's see, maybe a second tight end too. They have an established core on that offensive side of the ball, so they might just be looking to supplement that with some more blocking power on that side of the ball at that fullback, secondary tight end position, or offensive line. They have a few needs on the defensive side of the ball, perhaps, but wouldn't be surprised to see some horsepower in the form of blocking go here to the Vultures.
They've only had 1 pick so far in this draft. That is Ben Stackenpaper, the cornerback. Colin, when your picks are limited in a draft, and I know you've had a lot of picks this draft, but when you have only 1 or 2, does it force you to think harder maybe about who you're bringing in personality-wise or build-wise?
Yeah, it certainly can. You try to do as much vetting of the person as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, you have to go with what is presented to you. And Baltimore, it's a very veteran group. Tim Johnson and Thomas Paternity as co-owners, they're just about as veteran as you can get. These guys have been around the block. They've seen things. They know a lot of things. Paternity's won championships as an owner. So especially if they go fullback here, I guarantee you T-Pat will find a innovative and creative way to use him.
I remember when I came into the league, Baltimore used to be, swing city. So maybe they go somewhere that way again with a fullback. Demond, Baltimore, a perennial contender, but just never seemed to get over that hump. If you would pick one position maybe to help their cause, whether it's, good to pick up here or not, what would that position be?
D tackle. I would most definitely go D tackle here. Continue to beef up the defensive line and so forth to put pressure on the quarterback. As we see here in this round here, except we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offensive linemen be selected in this round alone. Is it 5 or is it 4? I think it's okay. It's a total of 4 what we have here. So that's a lot of offensive line that has been selected in this league, and not including the ones that were selected, earlier during the week in the early rounds of the draft. So you most definitely would like to beef up that defensive line.
We've seen many seasons of defensive line dominance in the Simulation Football League, getting really all the way back to, seasons 9 and 10 when Tallahassee and Alaska put together their run with a bunch of defensive linemen. Maybe the pendulum swinging back in favor of the offense this season. Benji, we go to you. Baltimore, as I said, a perennial powerhouse, but just can't get over the hump in the playoffs. we've talked about a couple of positions that they might go for. Do you have anything else to add to this?
No, I think that I'm not knowledgeable enough with the Baltimore Vultures as a lowly rookie coming in, but I have heard great things about the running attack, and I know they are a perennial power in the league. The move to get Ben stacking paper on defense as that third cornerback slot there, um, that's telling. Yes, they wanted to add some power to that defensive side of the ball. Maybe that's giving us a glimpse into the type of schemes they'll be running over there. We mentioned the need of defensive tackle, but I've kept hearing about the vaunted Baltimore rushing attack, so it would make sense to me that they continue to beef up that side of the ball with these picks here in the supplemental draft, like we had mentioned before. Possibly a fullback, possibly a second tight end, possibly a big horse on that offensive line here. Just wouldn't be surprised if we see Baltimore continue down that path.
He thinks that offensive line could be the selection. We'll see what it is. Here's Cameron Irvine.
With the 86th pick of the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Baltimore Vultures select Jay Hayden, tight end. Atlanta's on the clock with the 87th pick.
Yet another team goes the double tight end route as Baltimore selects a companion for Lloyd Graham Jr. We've already heard Damon speak of the double tight end sets. Andy, I'm not sure if you've ever run a double tight end set, but what do you think of its benefits that it could bring to an SFL franchise?
There are a lot of formations in all pro football that have two tight ends. I think it's a great move, and it adds another weapon for quarterbacks to have more receivers on the field that aren't traditionally guarded by some of those secondary members that are used to playing the pass, right? So when you line up with 3 or 4 wide, each defensive back is covering a wide receiver. Well, your tight end is usually, especially if you're playing man, covered by a linebacker. So to have a second tight end brings out just another option for a quarterback to target in some of those wider sets. I like the move. I like the pick. And I know that T-Pat and TJ have done their homework on whatever position they were going to go with. And so I'm sure they like this pick.
We move to the defending champs. The Atlanta Swarm are on the clock. Earlier in this draft, they got their quarterback of the future, Bryant Dynasty, after the retiring of Marcus Dunhill, going out a champion this past season. Also picked up a kicker in Semi Steele and a corner in Connor Darien. So we go to Colin with a new quarterback on the team now for Atlanta. Do you think they use this pick to get him another weapon?
I think they do. Dave Axis left to go to Lone Star. So definitely wide receiver 3 is a possibility for Atlanta here. We'll see if they go with one of Bryant's rattlesnake teammates. You know, they have a built-in chemistry, coming from the same team. Even if they don't, it'd be nice to get their Hawaiian Hurricane, his nickname is proclaimed to be, a weapon that he can sort of grow and develop with as he's learning that position.
But Damon, this is another team without an offensive lineman, but one of the most dominant running backs in the league, BDG Hollywood. How difficult is it as an owner to strategize against someone who commands that much attention from a defense? It looks like you're muted there, Damon. So we'll kick that question over to Andy, who's prepared as well.
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, when it comes down to a defense, I mean, the more people you have attacking the passer, the better, and that actually helps your secondary there on the other end. So when it comes down to a defensive front member, you're not only helping that defensive front immediately, but you're also helping the secondary, right? Because the less time they have to cover the guys down the field, the better that's going to help the entire defense play. So I think it's a good move.
So a potential extra blocker there. Demond, are you still there? Now, it looks like we may have lost Demond.
I think he's ignoring you. I think he doesn't want to answer the question. I think that's what it is. He's a little nervous.
No, it's like the sound is going in and out.
So we'll come back to you, Demond. Then Benji.
Okay, I'm good now. I can hear you.
Well, okay, so my question, Demond, was how many resources do you have to commit on defense to guarding a guy like BDG Hollywood, and does that shape potentially Atlanta's pick here with a minute 30 seconds left?
It does. I mean, well, the pick is in. You have to take him into accountability when you're game planning. I'm on the defensive side for BDG Hollywood. I mean, this guy is just phenomenal. I mean, he stops on the dime. He has great quick feet. His spin moves are phenomenal, and his jukes are extraordinary. So this guy is like the total package, and he breaks tackles as well. Let's just put that into his repertoire also. I mean, he is the total package when it comes to running backs here in the SFL. Basically can do it all. Here for them, I would basically say that they can go defensive end here. They need a defensive end. They need a second defensive tackle. I don't think Atlanta's going to go 3 linebackers because they love the 2 linebackers that they have with Shine and Rollin. So I don't see them going with a third, but I would love to see them go D end and D tackle here. They're equipped at wide receiver and tight end, but who knows? They may go with a second tight end as well.
Who will join the defending champions? Cameron Irvine has the answer.
I first have a question for Colin. Does Denver normally play in the pillows with that much enthusiasm?
He does play in the pillows, Cam, but I think he was particularly rowdy.
He stole the show back there. The whole chat was going crazy.
I see that now.
Draft Denver is trending.
Yeah, it is. It is. Absolutely. With the 87th pick of the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Atlanta Swarm select Chris Porter, defensive end, Oceanside, California. Las Vegas is on the clock with the 88th pick.
Demond hit the nail right on the head. Chris Porter is the selection for Atlanta. Benji, he partners with another defensive end, Billy Ray Valentine, and those two could terrorize offensive lines and quarterbacks this season. Your reaction to the picks of Chris Porter?
Chris Porter was a popular player in the minor leagues and is going to stay on the defensive side of the ball here and partner with Billy Ray Valentine. Atlanta has to be excited to get him in there, and to have those two here at the defensive end spot coming in as rookies, kind of setting the table for some great defensive teams here in the seasons to come. But they have to be excited to get Chris in there. He's going to pair well with Billy Ray. He's a personality. He's gonna be fun to have there in Atlanta, and I'm sure they're looking forward to getting him into the locker room. I say it's a great pick for the Swarm as they look to shore up that defense to be a complementary to that powerful offense.
A team that looks like it has pretty much no weaknesses anywhere you look, this Atlanta team. Colin, if you're a offensive coordinator and you see that front four coming at you this season, what do you try to do in terms of scheme to maybe limit their availability?
Well, that is tough because remember they have Jason Williams too at defensive tackle, and now you pair him up with 2 defensive ends, it'll be a smorgasbord. So as an offensive play caller, you want to go with the quick game as much as humanly possible, perhaps shotgun. And if you have offensive line to at least block one of the guys or help with double team with the guard, that's going to be really helpful. So
we go to the Sin City, Las Vegas Fury on the clock. Their selections have been a little bit all over the place this draft. We have a kicker in Otis Boudreaux, a running back in Scott Johnson, a tight end in Garrison Blue, and a defensive end in Tank Hutt. And so A bit of a mishmash, Andy. Is there any other place you could see Las Vegas going to maybe shore up their defense?
Defensive tackle could be a position that you could see. We've seen Las Vegas run a punter before. They do have a kicker already. Maybe adding a punter at a lower tier wouldn't be necessarily a bad option for them either. I think this could be a good spot for them. To add one of those. They could also add a tight end to make a second pairing along with Garrison Blue, who they just picked up. So lots of options here for Las Vegas.
We saw punters have a big impact in this previous SFLM season in terms of field position. I can't tell you how many times I was either calling a game or watching the game, and a punt came through and it put a team inside the 5. As an offensive player, Benji, how demoralizing is it to time and time again start from inside your own 10, inside your own 5?
Well, being an offensive player, you want that ball anytime you can get it. So I think that you're rooting for your defense to have success on that field, because you know that if they can set you up with that short field, it really increases the percentages there that you'll be able to get that ball in the end zone there with a successful shorter drive. So of course you're rooting for the defense there, and likewise you want to be able to maybe bail the defense out too when you do get pinned down inside your own 20, when you're on that offensive side of the ball. Just having the ability to clear out some distance, maybe sustain a drive, get that defense some rest. It's important to on the offensive side of the ball to help support your defense in that manner.
Vegas setting a furious pace. The pick is already in. Cameron Irvine has it.
With the 88th pick in the SFL Season 15 rookie draft, the Las Vegas Furies select Eric Davis, linebacker. Queen City's on the clock with the 89th pick.
Congratulations, Eric Davis, going to the Sin City. Andy, that was about the fastest we've seen a pick come in tonight. What does that say about an ownership group who gets the pick in that fast?
Yeah, I think it says a couple things. First of all, it says that they've been watching this guy for a long time, right? The longer a team takes, sometimes it means that they're trying to decide between a couple guys. When a team rushes to the podium, they're trying to get up there before the next card comes in. So it says that, but it also, says that they have a lot of confidence that this could be their guy. And so I think Davis was also one of those newer additions to this league. He came in a little late in the minor league process. So for Las Vegas, they must have had a very good interview with him, and I'm sure he'll fit right in there in the Sin City. I think it's got to be a good pick when your GM is a linebacker, you have Dave Drury, who's a linebacker, and you add a third guy in Eric Davis.
Jamon, what do you think the thought process was of adding a third linebacker to a scheme like that Andy said already has 2 very impressive linebackers in it?
Focal point, stop the run game. That's it right there. I mean, that's the reason why a team bring in 3 linebackers. They probably looked at the schedule and say, hey, we probably got some tough running backs that we're going to face up against this year. Let's go ahead and stack the defensive linebacking core and see if we can go ahead and get some stops and not allow these guys to break for 100-plus yards on us this season.
A lot of teams stacking up on the linebacker position in this draft. We turn our attention to the logo himself. Oh, wait, that's Chris Curtis. This is the Queen City Corsairs are on the clock. Haven't had a lot to do this draft. Only one selection, and that was an offensive lineman in Alex Nutruder. Queen City, again, they've had to do some rebuilding this offseason. Colin, with a lot of their players leaving for Fort Worth, do you think this pick goes a long way to maybe cementing Queen City as a top team for seasons to come?
I think it does. If you look at their kind of thing that they do, they have a kicker. They run out of alignment to defensive backs. So I expect something good here from Queen City. They already had an offensive lineman. They could go another one. do have a fullback opening though.
Demond, you were in a similar position last season where some of your players and one of your co-owners and coaches left to form their own team, and now Queen City's in this situation. What do you think is going through the minds of their ownership right now as they try to gear up and get ready for season 15?
Whenever you have someone on within your organization that's blessed to go out and have their own franchises, so you're happy for them, but you're not happy, when guys follow, because you want to keep your core group of guys. You don't want to have to rebuild or replace those positions because you've built relationships with those individuals. You set your playbook and your game plans according to their style of play and so forth. So you like to keep those group of guys within your organization. But hey, there's nothing wrong with individuals wanting to go out and test the water with a new franchise and so forth. But you do want to try to keep that same core group of guys that you've had for so long together. And I do basically see Queen City going wide receiver right here.
Wide receiver is the call. Only 2 on the team, but 3 offensive linemen already on this Queen City Corsair roster. That would be Griffin King, Alexander Detroiter, and Freddie Tubbs Jr. Cameron Irvine, we're all in suspense. What is the selection?
With the 89th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Queen City Corsairs select Carson Miller, offensive line, Cincinnati, Ohio. Sioux Falls has the 90th selection.
A quadruplet of offensive linemen there now in Queen City. So, Colin, I'll go to you. Do you think this is we're selling out to the run game move or just a general pass protection move?
It could be both, honestly. They moved Jet Zero from fullback to tailback, like I had mentioned before. And now you have 4 offensive linemen. It's going to be the Great Wall of Green up there in Buffalo.
Yeah, we'll see how defensive lines try to tackle this 4 offensive line set. And we now go to Sioux Falls, the runners-up from this past season. Andy, I'll throw it to you. Where do you think the black and gold are looking here?
Yeah, interesting. Interesting time for Sioux Falls. We're that close to the championship. Trying to get back in that area. Have 3 receivers, halfback, quarterback already on the roster. 1 tight end. I could see them going tight end here to kind of shore up that. I could also see them going offensive line to add to that area. And then when you turn over to the defensive, side of the ball. They could use another member of their secondary, and they could also potentially use someone on the defensive front as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see a defensive tackle go to the Sparrows in these last 3 rounds. So really a lot of different places that Sioux Falls, Jason, and AJ Levy can go. I'll be interested to see what the selection is when it comes in here at 90.
Working uncharted waters, definitely the longest and deepest an SFL draft has gone in its history, up to the 90th selection here. Benji, I asked you this question earlier in the evening, but we're getting down to the last couple of picks tonight. If you're waiting in the wings, what's going through your mind now is there's only 5 picks left.
Yeah, I think I've seen the owners after the first few rounds of the draft reach out to the rookies and say, there's still another round. And the same thing can be said tonight. There's still another round and a half to go after tonight. Get on the horn, reach back out to the owners, let them know you're interested and you want to play. Continue to just, be a bug in the ear, be a pain. Let them know you want to play. They want to hear from you. That's kind of the message I've heard from the owners. It's a little nerve-wracking for sure. To know that we're coming down now to the end of the draft tonight and tomorrow night, and we're only a limited number of spots open. The league is growing, and that's something to be excited about. But now, as the picks start to dwindle, and we start to see that they're some potentially will be undrafted and return to the minors. It'll be an interesting territory that the league hasn't been in before. It's a sign of growth, but also just a challenge that they're going to have to deal with moving forward. But if I'm a rookie, keep your hopes up. And again, after the draft tonight, reach out to those owners and say you're still interested and you want to play.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Andy really quick to continue kind of this thought process. Andy, you do a lot for the front office. You do social media for the SFL. So and as you said, you watch General a lot. So you kind of have the pulse of the league about now. If you're someone who doesn't end up being selected in these next couple of rounds, what would your advice be to those players?
Yeah, stay active. I think the one thing that players can always do is find an opportunity in this league. The draft is an example of that, but there are many guys in this league who have not been drafted and have found much success in this league. So what I would say is stay active, keep talking to owners. There will be spots that open up in the SFL very, very soon. There's some owner players around the league that I know some owners will want to replace very quickly with user players who are going to make an impact. So stay active. There's opportunity. And the other thing I would do if I were one of these players is kind of reevaluate. It is unfortunate to not get drafted. It's not the end of the world, but you also can take time to kind of understand, okay, maybe why wasn't I drafted and what can I improve on? Whether it's missed check-ins or not being active enough or not reaching out to enough owners, there's always something to improve in. And the minute you can reflect on yourself and understand that is the minute you can start moving forward to making an SFL roster.
Devon, going back to the Sioux Falls Sparrows, another team on the board with another dynamic running back in Colin Hart that they love to play through. Do you see them going out and maybe getting someone to try and bolster that? They already have a fullback, but as Andy said, Benji said rather, only one tight end.
Yeah, but I can most definitely see this team going out to get a second tight end. Reason being is because not only do they like to run the ball, which the tight end would help them with, they also love to pass the ball. Julian Tyree is one of the biggest arms in here in the SFL, especially throwing on those corner post routes. It's just an outstanding individual to see throw the ball, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do go tight end right here, Michael, because this is a team that loves to spread the ball around. They don't have a perennial number one receiver. All three of their receivers are basically good guys that does work back when running down the field or so forth, should I say. But I would love to see a second tight end here.
We go to Colin as the pick is not quite in yet. We're still waiting for confirmation from the league office. You have to face Sioux Falls pretty much every season as you're in a local rivalry of sorts in St. Louis. How do you try and they're one of the most solid teams in the league every season. How do you try to combat that?
Well, you just have to put in extra work. The defense is going to be really good. They always have a solid linebacking core. Offensively, Jalen Wells has been a really nice addition to Colin Hart, kind of a 1-2 punch. And they figured out how to use him not only in the pass game, like a lot of people use fullbacks and a blocking back for Colin Hart, but they give him multiple carries a game. And it definitely keeps you on your toes, and you have to really make sure that week you're buttoned up everything, dotted your I's, crossed your T's, just all that usual.
Definitely probably the best 1-2 punch rushing in the SFL, but we're about to find out who will be the next Sparrow. Cameron Irvine, tell us the news.
With the 90th pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Sioux Falls Sparrows select Dusty Wilson, offensive line, Vidor, Texas. Tulsa's on the clock with the 91st pick.
The flavor of the night continues as Dusty Wilson, another offensive lineman, off the board here in this 5th round. We're down to the final 3 picks, but before we move on to Tulsa's selection, I go to Benji Matson. without trying to tread too much on old ground here, give me your reaction to this pick of Dusty Wilson.
I think he slots right in to what Sioux Falls wants to do. We know that they're a strong offensive team. They like to run the ball. So that's a perfect selection for them to help shore up that front, play keep away from the defense. They had perhaps some needs on the defensive side of the ball, which they can address later in the draft. We didn't mention a second tight end perhaps for the team, but offensive line for the Sparrows is a great pickup. Help them keep chugging forward with that great offense.
With that last Sioux Falls pick, all four teams that came into tonight having not made a selection have now made one. Those were Chicago, Carolina, Arizona, and we just saw Sioux Falls. Demand, offensive line flavor of the night tonight, but really it may be accentuated more than any other team with the Sioux Falls Sparrows team because, as I mentioned, they have a fantastic 1-2 rushing punch, maybe more than any other team.
Yeah, this is going to play favor into their hands here for Sioux Falls. Going here with Dusty Wilson, who Houston did have on their draft board as well at the O-line spot. But kudos to Sioux Falls for taking this pick right here because, as I stated, it's going to be just an all-around pick for the run game and for the passing game as well. Both running back and fullback is going to be happy to run behind an offensive lineman here with this team, and I'm pretty sure he's going to come in and get the job done.
We get a live look in at the Desperado front office as the second season of the Deacon Nick era in Tulsa is set to begin. We go back to Andy Hamilton. Where do you think Tulsa could look to place this selection, their only one of the night?
Yeah, when you look at Tulsa and their team, they have a full front seven, 4 guys on the defensive line, DJ Majesty at linebacker, along with Espen Royale. I mean, there's, in my opinion, not much reason to try and improve that area. It's almost as good as you can get. They do have, 2 cornerbacks, a strong safety on the board here. I don't see a free safety. That could be an option for them to try and add a guy to the secondary who could, make an impact. They also have 1 offensive lineman. You could see another one go here. So some interesting options for them. I also could see a tight end coming off the board here to pair with Anthony Mosley.
These last 3 picks, Tulsa, Florida, and Jacksonville, these teams have maxed their cap. They have no space left to give extra points to these last 3 picks. Colin, as an owner, does that maybe change what you're looking at or who you're looking at in terms of personnel?
Yeah, because guys are going to have to come in at a lower value or necessarily a position that not everyone might find appealing. Even if they choose a strong safety here, you really can't put in the initial value that you want. And it's going to take time for that player to progress and to get better. So it'll be really interesting here to see what Tulsa picks, especially if it's a free safety, because like I said, you can't put in a lot of value to start with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Colin and Mike. Sorry to interrupt like that, but I would have went safety in the first couple of rounds of the draft instead of going O-line. That's something that you could have picked up here in the supplemental draft, because as Colin stated, that safety spot is going to take a long time for you to get value out of that player and for that player to progress and so forth on the back end. Or maybe Tulsa is not going to run with a free safety at all. But that's kind of scary to have your secondary out there like that with a generic free safety trying to cover some of the best wide receivers that we have in the game of football here in the SFL.
Andy, do you see a potential no free safety build as viable at all?
Yeah, potentially. It would be interesting. It would go, a little bit maybe to what Colin and the Gladiators have done before with less secondary members to try and play that way. Your coverages would be limited in terms of what you could do. It would certainly be interesting to say the least, but I would imagine From my seat as a defensive guy, you want a free safety. So I would imagine at some point in the next 3 rounds, they'll address that position.
Desperados still have not quite gotten that pick into league offices, so we'll go to Benji as we look at the big board. There's a couple big names still on there, or we will hold off just for a second as I say that the pick is in. Here's Cameron Irvine.
With the 91st pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Tulsa Desperados select Michael Potter, offensive line, Baxter, Tennessee. Florida's on the clock with the 92nd pick.
Offensive line goes again here for Tulsa as they try to protect the blind side of Deacon Dickens, who took a fair bit of sacks last season and maybe you're looking for a better season in his second go-around with the Desperados. We'll go to Benji for this reaction. And Benji, with this pick, I know that Potter was a big player at SFLM. What is the mindset of a player maybe that has fallen this far and maybe will have to settle for a position that they don't play or wouldn't necessarily want to play?
Well, I might think that as a rookie being drafted in the final rounds, of the supplemental draft, we're first round tonight, we'll finish out tomorrow. We have to remember that they're on a team and they get to play right away. They get to make an impact in season 15, all the while banking value for their preferred player after this season is over with. So I think that many of these rookies going tonight, it's a win-win, actually. You could look at it as a win-win here. They get to be in a locker room right away. They get to learn the ropes. They get to contribute. Some of these rookies will start working on the path of becoming a coach this season. We'll see them start scouting. We'll see them participate with the coaches, learning how to cut film, for instance, do things like that. So they're getting firsthand experience right now, getting on a team, getting in that locker room, making an impact, as we've said. And then all the while, they're working towards the future here. They're building that value for their player after season 15. Of course, they'll have the opportunity to sign with the team and stay there. So maybe this is another win-win for this team. Maybe they form such a strong bond, such a strong relationship that these picks will stay with these teams that draft them for seasons to come. So I think there's an angle here where you could say this is a win-win for these rookies that are going in the supplemental draft here tonight. Yes, everyone wanted to go in the opening rounds. That's what your SFL dreams are. But I still think there are a number of fantastic players that have been taken tonight and that will be taken tomorrow that will be in this league for a long, long time, and we'll see their names mentioned for seasons to come. And will be some of the greater players in the league for seasons to come. So again, I'll just say it's a win-win, I think, for the players going tonight in the supplemental and tomorrow night here at the end of this season 15 draft.
Florida Storm on the clock, looking for a bounce-back season after winning 3 championships over the span of 2 years. A bit of a step back for Florida in their first season after moving from Alaska. Demond already a punter and a kicker on this team, so Max Paul going all out on his special teams. Where do you think they could have an opening here?
Max Paul does special teams, Michael. I wouldn't be surprised here if he go. I don't know why. Probably in 2 or 3 seasons or so, but he probably could go tight end or fullback, as we do know he does love that fullback position.
And of course, offensive line has been the key position being drafted tonight. The pick is in. Max Paul wasting no time. Let's head over to the podium.
With the 92nd pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Florida Storm select Adam Jones, cornerback, Orlando, Florida. Jacksonville has the final pick of round 5.
A third corner for Florida to add to Ryan Davidson and Evan Carroll in that secondary. Colin, it's going to be an interesting situation for Florida this season. They had a bit of an up and down year in season 15. How do you think they look to bounce back coming through this summer?
Well, I think they've already addressed their primary problem offensively by moving J.W. Doyle from fullback to running back, which allows him greater offensive coordinator James Richards, who's a good friend of mine, spent time with him in St. Louis, was previously worked with what is now the assets of the Charleston Predators when they were in Indianapolis. So ultimately, I think Florida will have a better offensive transition because Richards came sort of right in the beginning of the season and kind of had to adapt on the fly. So now he has a full off season to sort of devote to figuring out, okay, how do I make this work?
We go to Andy. How does adding a third cornerback kind of, propel a team defensively? Because looking at it from my point of view, I'm not a coach or anything. Why would you need a third corner? Because you've got your one-on-one matchup with the two outside receivers.
Yeah, so your slot receiver is always going to match up against a slot corner, if you will, in one-on-one. But then when you look at zones, that's when it really plays a major impact, because that third slot corner is going to play in some of the zones where you, if you didn't have him, would be playing a generic. And anytime you have a star against a non-contract player, there's going to be a mismatch. So anytime like this draft where you have the ability to add some stars in places that you couldn't, a nickel corner is incredibly important. We just started running one last year with Ashley Finch. And the interesting part about a nickel corner is they don't have to be necessarily the best player, right? The whole point is bringing them in as your third defensive back in those two corners. The third one just needs to have time to build. So I think this is a great pick. I actually, Adam Jones is a great guy. He was on our board, from Florida here. I've talked to him quite a bit. Awesome. Love Adam Jones. I think this is a great pick for Florida. Max Paul does it again. And be careful with how much you say that Florida had a down year, Michael Torillo. We might be playing this clip back after the championship during Florida's championship highlight tape where you say they missed a step.
All you can do is look to the future, and look to the future is exactly what we're doing right now on this panel, because we are down to our final pick of the night. The Jacksonville Kings are on the clock at pick 93. Just over 2 minutes to go in the round. Damon, this Jacksonville team for years has been the epitome of the run and gun, high octane offense. What do you think they need to do to just get that one step further next season?
Yeah, running gun is basically what this team here loves to do. Also, they love to hang the ball high in the sky. They also like to run it as well. I can see here them probably adding they have 3 wide receivers already. They probably could add a second tight end. I wouldn't be surprised if they go fullback here. They look pretty stout on the defensive end of the ball. Maybe a second defensive tackle here, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go fullback or second tight end. That's what I'm seeing them project right here.
Benji, looking at the big board, if you will, is there anybody that's still up there that has surprised you that they haven't been taken yet tonight?
I would say so. I think I still see some of my teammates still on the board, and they're eager to play. Speaking of the Birmingham Fuel, I know they want to get in there and contribute and want to find themselves on a team. There are a number of players I see on the big board that have been mentioned throughout the minor league season and have played prominent roles on their teams, and their names haven't been called yet tonight too. I think I even see a few names that were high on some of the mock draft boards. If I may be mistaken, Devin King's still available. He was originally slated as, correct me if I'm wrong, he was high up on the draft boards as a linebacker, and he's still there. I think some of the wide receivers crew, which was super deep coming into the draft. We all knew that. And there's still a large number of really great players at that wide receiver spot from the minor leagues that still don't have a home yet. And that's surprising to see as we round down here in the draft.
The final pick of the night is in. Over to Cameron Irvine to close the show.
With the 93rd pick in the SFL's Season 15 rookie draft, the Jacksonville Kings select Larry Barr, offensive line. That concludes round 5, round 6 tomorrow afternoon, round 7 tomorrow evening to conclude the SFL's largest rookie draft in league history.
Another offensive lineman, Andy, for the final time tonight, we head to you as you have really pioneered this pick, and it's been the theme of the night. And we mentioned that Jacksonville has a tremendous offense. This can only help it, right?
Offensive line makes a difference. Over the course of the next 4 to 5 seasons, offensive line is going to become the most valued position for owners, for GMs, coordinators, and running backs and quarterbacks alike. If you are looking to get into the SFL, consider offensive linemen. There is not a bigger impact you can make than at this position. I'm so happy that teams have realized and have been interested in this all offseason, because I think it's going to make our league so much more competitive and so much better. I'm amped to see it. I'm amped for the guys who are excited about playing offensive line, and I'm not done picking them. So hit me up on Discord if you want to be an offensive lineman.
One last throw of the dice from Andy Hamilton. We go to Colin Northrup for his final thoughts on tonight's proceedings.
We see the value of the offensive line. It started kind of with our fellow panelist here, Mr. Hamilton, has sprouted like crazy. Still a lot of good players available on the board. I'm surprised Derek Majors is still available. This is the guy who led his team to the SFL Minor League Championship. Never mind. There's still plenty of other guys available.
Benji Matson, you've been involved in this draft as both an analyst and a player, basically from start to finish. What have your overall trends been that you've seen over this past week?
I think the trend of you are more than just the number next to your name, which we heard from Coach Craven, we've heard from Eddie, and so many of the owners too. This league is about the people. Yes, we play on the field. We are players on teams in the SFL, but I think the trend and the theme here is you are more than just the number next to your name. That's what's wonderful and awesome about the Simulation Football League, giving so many now a record class of new rookies the opportunity to come in and make a name for themselves and blossom and just reach new heights or new potential, do something new for themselves that they've been looking for. And I think that's really exciting. That's my trend for the SFL as we head into season 15. You are more than just the number next to your name.
Only 2 more rounds to go. One more day of drafting. What are you looking forward to for tomorrow, Damon Simeon?
For it to be over with. Reason being, man, as an owner, dude, and you're hearing the draft, the adrenaline is running, and you're putting the final pieces to your roster together. And the only thing you want to do, dude, is see your team on the field. I can't wait for the season to start for season 15. I feel really good about the roster that we have put together, the pieces we've put together, changes we have made, and so forth. I'm excited for all the new additions to each team that has come in through this draft. Everyone, congratulations to you. There's 2 more rounds to go. You never know when your name may be called. I would suggest that you reach out to some of these owners yourself. Try to sell yourself a little bit to see if you can get selected within the last 2 rounds of this draft here, because you don't want to miss what's going to happen in season 15. And I'm telling you, season 15 by far is going to be the best ever. Mark my words.
That will do it for us tonight from the SFL Draft. For Commissioner Cameron Irvine and analyst Andy Hamilton, Colin Northrup, Damon Simeon, and Benji Matson, I've been Michael Torillo saying so long, and tune in tomorrow for the conclusion of the S15 Rookie Draft for the Simulation Football League. Good night, everybody.
Good night.